I'm Josh Hilderbrand. I farmed here in Sherman County. My family has homesteaded. Farmed some ground, Klondike, near Wasco and here. So I've been able to take on some ground and expand my operation over the last several years. So started out doing a lot of custom spraying and seeding to gain some acres, and then that evolved into leases. So now I have more leases than I do custom farming, which is sometimes nicer. I prefer it. So that's kind of where I've came from and went to. So I like the idea of being able to, hopefully either save money or be able to use more expensive chemicals. But at the end of the day, when you're spraying less acres, you're spending the same or less money than you would blanket spraying kind of what we hope was tried and true. But this year, some of the chemicals weren't working as well as we hoped. So just learning about it to see if it's going to work, because it's going to be something I think we're going to do in the future. It's another tool that we're going to need to have. So my doubts were probably more on my machine side, as far as hoping the GPS in my machines were fast enough, or the boom section cycle time is on off, not having the PWM sprayer. So it was more or less on my older equipment being fast enough to maybe work with the Agcopter stuff. The other stuff would have been just the logistics of, when are we going to fly it? How long does it take to fly it from when I say go fly it, and then the return time? Because everything's weather related, and you can have a plan, but then maybe the weeds show up 2 weeks later. You can try to make a plan a month ahead of time, but if it's cold or it rains an extra time, it's going to change your timing on when weeds come or how many come too. So there's a lot of variables to it to plan too far ahead. My idea was, it had been several years ago, I was interested in the Weed It. So I'd always thought we needed to go some route of trying to spray just the weeds. I know I talked to Weed It a fair amount in the past and then didn't end up going that route. A lot of it was for, the initial cost of getting into it. So then when I was hearing about the Agcopter, I like the idea of being able to use the equipment that I had, or maybe small upgrades to my equipment that I had, so I didn't have huge input to get started in it. And then being able to try it without spending a whole lot of money to see how it worked. And if it didn't work, there wasn't nearly as much risk to it to see how it worked it's all kind of trial and error right now, but it's nice not to spend $200,000 on something and then go, well, it works, but I'm not happy with it. So that was a relief to give it a try with not a lot of big expense involved. I feel like the quickest learning I maybe had was, I had really no idea of a percentage of weeds in a field. You look and go, yeah, there's enough, we need to go, there's weeds out there. But then, we could have guessed, we should have took bets on, is it 20%, 50%, what it is? And then when the Agcopter flies it and you get a map, and you're like, oh, it's either more or less than I expected. So there was quite a learning curve to look at a field and go, oh, that's probably 50%. Let's see what the copter says. So that was one of the learning things that I didn't think about, I guess. And then once we started getting maps in, it was awakening to see what the percentage was, and then even the path of the weeds, where they come from. You can see some of the thistle trails and patches of previous China lettuce where they were there, but then the map shows it for sure too. You can definitely tell on the sprayer, if it's turning on and off at the right time. And then a lot of it that I used the Agcopter on, we were doing a few different tank mixes, but I did mainly paraquat through the sprayer, and that was after harvest, and a lot of it was for thistles and some of the Chinas. But with the paraquat, in 2 days you're going to know. So it was pretty easy to see on a thistle if you missed it or not. And the accuracy was there. So I really hadn't hardly seen any that it missed. And if it did, it was a weed that came after I sprayed, because I mean, I was pretty impressed on the accuracy and how it did work. And I mean, my thing is a lot of it I was trying to get going early in the morning before the wind, so I'd be spraying in the dark, and you're seeing it turn on and off, and you can't see the weeds very well through the sprayer lights because it's just not as bright. And then once the sun comes up, you start seeing how many were out there, and you can really see it work then. So, but it was interesting to be able to watch it on the screen run in the dark to where you're like, well, I think it's working. And then, you know, once the sun comes up, you can say, yeah, it is. So, the one thing I liked for like when it was after harvest on the fields that we were, you know, that seemed like that 25-30% weed population, it was nice to mix up a tank load in the morning, you know, and spray the same amount of acres that would have took me 3 or 4 tank loads. So it was interesting to be able to cover so many acres on less water, you know, get out there at 4 in the morning and it's 8, 9 o'clock shutting down, and I finally ran out of the 1 tank mix. So basically set in the thing the whole time versus in that amount of time, normally I'd have ran 3 or 4 blanket spray tank mixes out. So I think for like next year, I'm hoping to have a sprayer that we can run kind of during harvest that can do, you know, 1 tank load out a morning or even a half a tank load, but I can have it mixed up for somebody to run it, and then I don't have to worry about somebody mixing chemicals, you know, and doing all that part of it. I can have it set, ready to go the day before, and like the job's in it to where they can go spray for 3 hours and not have to mix or really think, and just, you know, let the sprayer and the map do its thing. Yeah, especially having the map ahead to where kind of have an idea of how many weeds, what chemical maybe do we want to use as far as gallonage per acre, you know, how far can we get 1 tank load? Can we do 500 acres on a tank, or if it's going to be 250, or if it's a smaller field, we'll just mix a half a tank load. So that's pretty nice to know too. Probably the biggest things is knowing, I mean, I dealt with mainly Raven, so knowing a lot of it's going to depend on what applicator they have and guidance. Knowing a lot of that ahead of time, and I think it was key when we started, I mean, it was winter time when we started doing some of the, you know, the practice maps and learning how we needed to go. Starting ahead of time and having it ready to go for when it is busy season is key. And as far as, I don't know if the PWM nozzles, mine doesn't have that, so I'm interested in trying that on the next sprayer if I went to that, but I was happy with, you know, 9 sections, regular boom control seemed to work fine. So I don't know if you have to go to a PWM sprayer to really gain. I mean, I was pretty happy with what I had. I'm excited it worked this year because and we worked a lot of the bugs out of the sprayer side of it, I think, to where I can make it, the sprayers, as far as I put 20 PSI diaphragms on it to hold more boom pressure. And I think I mean, you want every filter screen so your boom on and off time is as quick and accurate as it can be. And I mean, for me, I just updated one of the sprayers, so now hopefully both of them can be set up to run the Agcopter maps through. So for me, that was easiest thing for me to do, is hopefully have 2 set up to where I could cover, you know, twice as much ground with either map. I mean, if one sprayer is down, we can put the map in the other sprayer and continue. And for me, that makes 200-foot sprayers that can do the same thing. We're not tied into putting that much money in one sprayer and then it's stuck on it so it was being able to be flexible and have 2 sprayers, and then even if one goes away, we can keep upgrading and then still use the Agcopter. So that is one of the things I really liked about it, is we're not tied to putting that much expense on an older machine.